programming. Like in general, what is C programming? Maybe why do we need C programming? Uh, Maybe that's where we need to start it. So when you look at C programming, it's just a general purpose programming language that has been widely used for over 50 years. So this is an old programming language, and it's still a relevant programming language, and it's still a very beginner friendly language. And if you learn this language, I'm sure you would appreciate it whenever you want to learn any other language. And C is very powerful. It has been used to develop operating systems, databases, applications, and many more. So for these things, we are going to talk about them later. But whenever you want to code C programming, you need what we call an IDE, or a code editor, whatever, a text editor. Then after that, you need somewhere to run. So if you have an IDE, it will be easier for you, something like that. So that IDE that I'm calling IDE is an integrated development kit. So that's the sort of development environment. So that's the IDE. So you need that. And when it comes to C, we are going to talk about them. Which one can you try? And I think you already have it because you have been coding it. So C is a general purpose programming language created by Dennis Ritchie. In 1972, it is a very popular language despite being old. The main reason for its popularity is because it is a fundamental language. It can be in the field of computer science. Sorry. So C is strongly associated with the Unix, as it was developed to write the Unix operating system. So maybe the reason is, maybe the question is, why are we learning C? If it is a language which is already in existence for over 50 years, why are we still learning it? Are people dumb? Are developers dumb that they can use this language? So normally it is one of the most popular program languages in the world. If you know C, you have no problem learning other popular programming languages such as Java, Python, C++, C Sharp, and many more. So if you look at it, by learning C, it will be easier for you to learn any other language that you want to learn. Trust me when I'm saying that. Whenever you are doing Java, you find out that the for loop that you are seeing here, the variable that you are seeing here, the while loop that you are seeing here, whatever that you are seeing here is the one that you are going to see in Java. Just need to learn the environment for Java only, and maybe some extra, but otherwise, the every basics of Java is just the same as C. Python there, C++ there, C Sharp there. You can talk of all other languages that you want to talk about. JavaScript, all those things. If you look at it, most of the core concept was borrowed from C programming. So if you know C, you understand how computer memory works as well. So C is very fast as well compared to other programming languages. If you have done the issue of high-level languages, whatever, something like that, low-level program languages, you do, and you would easily understand what you are talking about. And C is very versatile. It can be used in both applications and technology as well. I'm trying to accept those who are joining us. And those who are joining us, please make sure that you are always muted unless you want to say something. So I don't going to look at the difference between C and C++. You do look at them later, but otherwise it's one and the same thing, only something there is different. We're not going to talk about it. So normally when you want to run C++, I've said that you need what you call a code editor or an IDE, integrated development environment. This one is the one that you want. And normally when you're doing C, there are those which are already there, the code blocks. You can use the code blocks. You can use dev-C. You can use the VS
Say,
Code, Visual Studio. Yes.
say, ndokumbirisa.
Yes.
Can you explain to us chaicho chaicho chinombonzi neshona chaicho kuti chimboitei patinenge tichiti tiri kuita coding tinenge tichimboita sei chaizvo chaizvo maybe zvogona kundibatsira sei muzvamo.
Okay. Thank you for the very question. To others, it might be looking like it's a pet question, but it's a very important question. For us to do programming, there is only one thing that we'll be doing there. We'll be creating a software. So this goes back to the issue of software. Why do we need software? Whatever, all those things. What is a software? Blah 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 blah. So when you are doing programming, when you are doing coding, you are creating a software, or it is the process of coming up with a software. What is a software? I think you are doing this from other modules. If I think you are doing that. A software is just a collection of those instructions to execute maybe a certain task. And it do you attribute a software. So for you to come up with a software, you need to learn what we call a programming language. And for you to use now when you're using that language, you are creating a software. So that process is the one that we are saying programming. So kubika ikoko nekiita sei ndoyatiri kuti programming, or that's what we are calling coding. I don't know if you get it.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. So basically, so now when you want to run this programming, whatever, when you want to run C, or whenever you want to code, you need this what you call thing the IDE, which is the integrated development environment. So normally for me, I'm using this dev C++. You could run on, if you look at the video that I've shared, I was using VS Code, yes. Also, you can use code blocks, you can use Eclipse, you can use Visual Studio. All these code editors, you can use them to write your code there, and then you run it, something like that. You test it. I think it was good if people joined earlier, or maybe I need to assign someone to do that. So now let's look at this one is just a quick start, like how you get started, how you start whenever you want to run a C program, whenever you want to code something like that. So basically what you need to do is here you could create, if you go on file, you could create a new project, this one file, new, and then instead of creating a new source file, normally you create a new project and you pick this one, it's a C programming, and then you give it a name, right? Maybe let me just say project one, and then you need to click this one because it's just a console application. The console application is the one that run on the console, whatever, something like that. That black screen that you see. So after that, you just save wherever you want to save, and then boom, you'll be having this, whatever, this one. So I already have this demo file, is the one that I'm going to use. So if you have this .c, the .c file extension for all the C files, that's what you're going to get there. Okay, so now let's look at what we call the syntax, right? There's what we call the syntax. So this thing that we call the syntax is the grammar of a programming language, right? You have heard me saying that we've got Java, we've got Python, we've got C Sharp, we've got maybe PHP, we've got JavaScript, all those languages. So what makes these languages differ is this animal here, the syntax or the grammar, right? So it's a word um, that looks very big, but its meaning is very simple. It's the grammar for that programming language. So you have already seen the following code. Don't worry, we didn't talk about it, but I'm sure you've already seen this code, what you call the hello world. The very basic code that we always write whenever you are trying to learn a new language. So that's the very thing that you you start to learn. But basically, we need to look at very basic things which are there, and you need to make to give attention to these things. Why? Because they are very important. You need to know them. You need to understand them. Why? Because they make a lot of things happens in your code, to a point that if you miss them, then your code is not going to compile. So please read them, understand them, So basically, when it comes to these things that you see here, which is the hash include here, stdio.h, this one. So what it means that you are trying to include a file to your program. Like there's a file which is not on your program, or the file which you are not coding here on this file, whatever, and you want to include it in your program, maybe for a reason to use the contents of that file within the program that you have, right? So this hash include keyword, we call them the preprocessor directives. We call them preprocessor directives. It's very, very important. And here we use it to include the libraries, normally to include the header file library, just like that. So whenever you see hash include, know that there's a header file library that you want to include. What is that header file library? Normally when it comes to C programming, there are already code which was already done for you, or some codes which were already done for you, that you just want to make use of it. So those are the header file libraries that we are talking about, or those are the libraries that we are talking about. So those are the ones that you'll be wanting to what? To include. So you use this hash include. There are others like the hash define. You need to know it as well. If you want to define a constant, whatever, you could use hash define, something like that. So there are some of the preprocessor directives which is not hash include as well. So you need to try to look around at those basic things that you could use. Um, so basically that's the hash include there. And then the other things we'll talk about them as we go, but there's this other thing which is the main. So we are going to talk about what are functions, but please take it as a simple thing. When you see this main, know that that's where your C programming language is going to start to execute whenever you run it. So you're not going to see a program without the main function, and it returns an integer. That's why you have this int. So we're going to talk about this issue of returning. What does it mean to return? What something like that. But basically, take main function is a function that you always need on your program. Without it, the program doesn't know where to start. So if you try to run it, it won't run. Can you make sure that we are always on mute, please? Okay, so basically, that's the main function there. Maybe let's look at what we call a C statement. So normally when it comes to statements, a computer program is a list of instructions to be executed by a computer, like what I said before. So in a program language, these programming instructions are called what? Statements. So the following statement instructs the compiler to print the text hello world to screen, like this one that we have. It's a statement that we have which says to the computer, please print this text to screen the hello world, something like that. So those are the statements in C programming. And normally it is important that you end the statement with a semicolon. So whenever you write a statement in C, know that you need to put this semicolon, right? Yes, if you leave it, you know what happens. You get a compilation error. It won't run. It will tells you that you need to put this. So whenever your line ends there, please remember to put this. Just like what you do with the while learning other languages. There are rules for those languages. You do verbs for English here. That's what we are saying there. Whenever your statement ends there, please put that semicolon. It's very, very important. So now let's talk about the very, very basic thing, which is the C output. Okay, so you are writing your program and maybe you want to ask someone, or maybe you want to show the user there. Yes.
I wanted to ask
Hello, sir.
scanf. How do we use scanf?
Okay, it's okay. We are going there. You are now doing the output, but not the input.
Okay, sir.
Yes. So we'll get there. I don't know. Being who you want to say something?
Yeah, we are no longer recording. Say, I don't know if you can start record again.
What happens?
I don't know what happened, but I've seen the
But
transcript stop record.
it is still recording here. I
Oh,
think it is
so
still
thank you.
recording. Okay, thank you for
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Okay, but thank you for that. I think okay, I think this is the script that you're talking about. Okay, but thank you for that. Thank you for that. I think it's good if you always check on it if it's still recording, but I think for now we are still for now I think we are still okay, we are still fine. Okay, so for the one who was asking about the scanf thing there, please do ask me later, boss. Here I'm seeing that we do not have something for that, but we'll talk about it as we are doing the output there. Okay, so Tim, whenever you want to do or whenever you want to print something to screen, you need to know that you use this printf, you use this printf. So let me just accept these latecomers. Okay, so let's just let me just take this. Okay, let me just take this here so that I will experiment with it. Guys, can I have someone to do this for me? To accept those who are joining. Okay, let me, I think if I
You can assign to me. I think that's okay.
okay, it's okay. I'm trying to find someone here who's at the top. I think if I make you a presenter or something like that, I think you'd able to add, or anyone who is able to accept those people to join, please do that for me. I think Ndobikaise Simela, you could help me with that. I think Vincent, you can lower your hand unless if you want to say something. Otherwise, thank you for the gesture. Okay, so I was talking about this the issue of printf, right? So if whenever you want to print something to screen, use this printf, and there are a lot of things that goes into this. So here I wanted to print hello world. That's why you are seeing this hello world here. That's why you're seeing this hello world here. So let me show you this. If you take out this thing and try to compare and run this, you get oh, okay, I'm not getting an error for one good reason. It is doing that implicit for me. That's why I'm getting a warning here. Note that please include this one or provide a declaration for printf. So it is importing it implicitly, but giving me a warning. So in other standard C libraries, whatever, you get an error for doing that. Why? Because this printf is found in this standard input output header file. This header file is the one that you've got the code to take whatever you put in printf to display it to screen. So whenever I say printf, do not think that to say printf is enough to print to screen. No. But whenever I say printf, the file which is this one, the standard input output header file, please can you make sure that we are always on mute? So this file is the one that you've got that trick to take this text there to put it to screen. Let's just say it in that way, right? So basically, that's the way you print. Whenever you want to give an output to screen, that's how you print. Don't worry about a lot of things that you could see. What if I want to print a variable? What blah blah. Let's just give us our time. I think we would end up being there whenever you want to print whatever what you want to print. But basically, that's what you do. And the main focus line for print is this one, not the main, not the return, whatever, blah blah. But if you want to print to screen, please make use of this line, and you can even write whatever you want in here, and you could print it instead of getting the hello world. Now I'm getting the world just like that. So that's what you do there. And maybe let's look at the issue of here the issue was on the use of double quotes. Please make sure that you use double quotes there. If you do not do that, you get an error. I think it's a basic thing there. And also you can put as many as you want these printfs. You can put as many as you want here. And also this other thing of escaping characters, whatever. Like if I say backslash n, blah, blah, blah. and do this, what happens is I'll get to print this word and another word just right below it by using this, but by omitting this, you would see that you get word, something like that. So now comes with whenever you want to style your things, when you're printing, whatever, something like that. But basically, that's it. So that's the new line that I was talking about. This, the slash n, the backslash n. It's a new line character. We call it a new line character. Whenever I want to print the next line or the next thing, whatever, on a new line, you use this slash n, the new line character. This one is the one that I was explaining. So you could experiment with it. You can even put it in a single printf statement, just like this. And what you get is just the same. All right, so guys, if you have any challenge with these basic things, it's good if you stop me, if you see that I'm sprinting, because I'm sprinting for something that I feel we could learn all these things where we are doing that. Sorry. So basically, you see, hello world, I'm learning C, and it is awesome. If you look at it, you've got hello world, and then backslash n, I am learning C, then backslash n, then when you see it, so now this is a first line, this is a second line, this is a third line. So that backslash n is the one which is actually helping us to put the next character on a new line, something like that. So that's the new line character there. And then there's what we call comments. People underestimate the power of what you call comments. Guys, whenever you're writing your program, make sure that you put comments. Why are you putting comments? It's good for one good reason. The person who is reading your code would get to understand what you are doing by reading your comments. Also, if you are going to leave the organization for some reasons, anyone who is going to maybe continue with the work that you're doing, it will be easier for them to understand what you have been doing. So that's why we normally need comments. And also you can use it whenever you want to troubleshoot your code, right? For the purpose of debugging as well, to see where exactly is the error. You can use the what you call comments. So comments can be used to explain code, to make it more readable. It can also be used to prevent execution when testing alternative code. And comments can be single lined or multi-lined. So in C, we've got two types: the single line or multi-line comments. So single line comments start with the two forward slashes. These two forward slashes, any text between those forward slashes and the end of the line is ignored by the compiler. That means it will be not executed. So if you look at this one, if I come here and do this, what happens is that this one will become a comment. Like I'm commenting my code, I'm telling people that this is what I'm doing, whatever, something like that. So if I run this, you see that I'm going to get nothing instead of getting everything that I was getting. Why? Because I make this a comment. So the compiler is now ignoring this line. Why? Because it's not for the compiler, but it's for the users, or not for the users, but for the programmer, and maybe the others who want to continue with this, whatever code that we are writing, something like that. So basically, that's the single line comment. But what if you want to comment 2 lines, 3 lines, 5 lines? You put a forward slash and then this asterisks, and then you put the asterisks and then the forward whatever, the forward slash. If you look at it now, this return 0 as well is now what? Is now a comment as well. So you've commented 2 lines instead of just 1 line. So if you want to comment more lines, that's what you do there. So I think what is very important is to know how to comment and when to use comments, just like that. So basically that's what you do with the comments. And maybe now let's look at the very, very basic and very, very important thing when it comes to C programming, which is the variables. I think this is a basic concept that you need to get. This is a basic thing that you need to get and get an understanding of these things. Why? Because they are very, very important when it comes to C programming. Okay, so let's talk about what we call variables. Just wait a little bit. So now we need to understand what we call a variable. So basically a variable, we call them containers for storing data values like numbers and characters. This is in a general, like in layman language, something like that. That's what we call what? A variable. It's just a container that we use to store our values there during the program execution, something like that. But when we want to talk like IT guys, now we are talking of a memory space there that we are setting aside to store the value whenever we are running this program. That's what we call a variable. So you see there are different types of variables in defined with the different keywords, right? There's what you call keywords as well. We could read about it. So there's what we call int. If you see this int, you are talking of a variable type which is going to store integers. You know, the integers from mathematics, those numbers without decimals, such as 1, 2, 3, minus 20, whatever, something like that. And there's what we call a float. Float are those variables float are those, sorry, I just want to check if those people are being accepted, but others, thank you. So float are those variables with the floating point numbers, like 19.99 whatever, something like that. So whenever you want to store maybe the data type like salary that you think it might have some sense, whatever, or it might have a decimal number, something like that, use this keyword float. So that will be the variable type. Then there's what you call character, which stores a single character, maybe it's A, it's B, it's C, whatever, something like that. And you normally use a single quotes. So whenever you declare variable, you need to know. So whenever it comes to programming language, what you need to know is the syntax, is how to write whatever I want to do. So if you want to declare variable, what is declaring a variable is to create a variable to tell the computer to set aside the memory that you want to use to store a certain type of data where you are where your program is executing, something like that. So to create a variable, specify the type and assign the value, something like that. So maybe you can declare and assign the value, or you can declare it, something like that. So the syntax is that you put the type first, then the variable name, and then you put what you call the assignment operator, and then you put the value, and then you terminate, because that's the end of a what? That's the end of a statement, something like that. So basically, that's what you want to do. So if you know this, you won't ever go wrong whenever you want to declare variable. Why? Because you know I need to put int, float, character, maybe string, whatever, something like that. That's what you need to do, just like that. So for example, here, int my num, then you put this one quite assignment operator here in programming. It's not an equal sign, this one. So this one, it's not an equal sign. It's an assignment operator. It will only become an equal sign if you put them R2 akatevedzana, something like that. That's when you call it an equal sign. Otherwise, in programming, it's an assignment operator. We use it to initialize variable or to assign values to variable, something like that. So here I can have something like int is the data type, and then you say my num is the name of the variable, and then maybe you could put 20, just like that. So what have we done? We've declared or created a variable called my num. So in memory now we've got a variable called my num, and then we've got a value at that memory space which is 20, something like that. In there's a lot of things that you can talk about. What if you want to print this? What if you want to do this? But not for now. So basically, that's the variable. That's what you call a variable. You can have it maybe as a float, maybe float salary. Maybe it's $20.50. Whatever that you want to do there. Maybe you can have a character, maybe maybe it's results or grade. Let me just say grade. Normally the grade is the one, and then maybe you could put A there. That's the grade, something like that. And if you look at it, it's each and every end of a line, I'm putting what? A semicolon. Leaving it, you know what happens. Your program won't compile just like that. So basically, that's how you declare a variable. So you can also declare without putting a value. Like here, I can just have character grade like this. And then later on, maybe I now want to put a value into that variable, you can always do that by now putting the value inside that variable, something like that, just like that. Also, you are allowed to change the value. Maybe let's say later on, after declaring this A, I want to change, so this my num, I want to change the value of my num. You are also allowed to do so. Maybe you want to put 30 plus 5 there, something like that. Maybe you want to do that. You are allowed to do so. So by initially, my num was having 20, but here it will have 35, something like that, after 30 plus 5, something like that. So that's how you work with what? With the variables. And basically, that's it. And whenever you want to print a variable, I think this is something that I need to talk about later. Let's talk about the format specifiers, because I could not talk about printing a variable without talking about what you call format specifiers. I think these things, guys, are very, very important. And I also think there was a video in your portal there which was specifically for format specifiers. Why? Because this is a very, very important thing. Whenever I want to print, whenever I want to get the data from a user, you normally want to make use of these format specifiers. That's why I said to the guy who was asking, what if I want to take input? And I said, no. It's something that we need to do later. Why? Because we wanted to involve a lot of things. We wanted to involve variables, we wanted to involve format specifiers. So those things were not yet covered. So let's talk about this, what we call a format specifier. So a format specifier are used together with the printf function to tell the compiler what type of data the variable is storing. So it is basically a placeholder for the variable value. So normally in general, we always say this is just a placeholder, but you need to know which placeholder to use now. So in other words, just telling the compiler that, at this place, sometime there is a value which is going to come there, but this value must be of this type. Why? Because the variable which is going to store that value is of this type. So if you want to take an input from the user, you need to use a format specifier for integers if you want to store the value, or if you want to take an integer. Why? Because the variable that we're going to store that value is an integer. If it is a float, you need to use that one for a float. If it is for characters, you need to use the one for characters. If it is for strings, you want to use the one for what? For strings, just like that. So you need to know which one for what, something like that. So a format specifier starts with a percentage sign. That's what to note there. And followed by the character. The character is the one that tells you which data type now. For example, to output the value of int variable, use the format specifier %d. So whenever you're dealing with the integers, please use %d. When you are dealing with the characters, %c. When you are dealing with the float numbers, %f. If you are dealing with the strings, %s, you need to know that. And once you know that, you are good to go, just like that. And all these examples, they are trying to give a scenario how, like here, if I want to print my num, what I could do here, maybe I want to mix the string part inside the printf. I'll say my num value is, so where I want the value to be now, I will put the placeholder where I want my value to be. So I want an integer value to be here. So I will say my number value is, like my number variable, this variable, my number value is %d. Let me just put maybe this one so that maybe it might look nice. So what to do next? Then here I will append the variable that I want the value of it to be printed. So just like this. And then once I've done this, let me run this and see the result. Then I will see that my number value is 35, something like that. So for now, maybe it might not make sense because we are just doing basic things, but you could write a software basing on all those basic things that you do. So if you arrange all these instructions, you could make a great software. So basically, that's how you print the variable there. So what if you want to print maybe multiple variables, and maybe you want to say and grade is. So whenever you say is, now where you want the value to be, put a placeholder for that type of variable. So I will put percentage C. Why? Because I'm dealing with a character. So now you align these according to these placeholders. So I wanted to put my num first, and then I'll put the grade later. So I will say grade here. So if I run this, compare and run, what do I get? I'll get my number value is 35 and grade is A, something like that. So you could do it, you can add more and more and more and more. You are not limited to number of whatever you want to do here. And take note that there is nothing that you are putting before these variables, and they are separated by a comma, just like that. All right. So why am I saying so? It's a little bit different when you're working with the scanf there. So take note of that. So that's how you use this. That's how you use these format specifiers. So the issue of changing values of variables, I think I've already talked about this, that you're allowed to change values if you want to change them. Also, you can take a value of another variable to another variable. I think these what about if I want to declare multiple variables? Okay, so before that, let me just look at the issue of taking input from the user using scanf. I think it is more related with what we're doing here. So maybe if you want to take an input from the user, you want to write a software there, and you want to ask a user to enter some input. Maybe you want to add two numbers, so you want to ask the user enter the first number and they enter the second number, and then you would add those two numbers later and get the result. So what can you do here? So the right function to use is what we call the scanf. Where do we find this scanf? It's still in the stdio.h standard input output header file. So without this header line here, you might get an error whenever you want to use scanf. So if you want to use the printf and scanf, you find it here. So you need to say hash include standard input output header file, this one stdio.h, something like that. So what do we do here? What do we pass here? Just like this one, you put those codes like what we've done with this, with the printf. And then the next thing that to put here is the next thing to put there is the what you call the format specifier or the placeholder there. I'm going to put percentage %d. Why? Because I want to store the value maybe in this my num variable. So what I'm going to do is here I'm going to put what you call the address operator, this ampersand or something like that. So I'm going to use that, and then I'll put the variable name. It is very, very important that you put the address operator. Failure to do so, the compiler doesn't know where to add. Okay, thank you for that. Where to add that where to add that value in memory location. So whenever you want to store a value using scanf, you need to put the address operator. Why? Because it tells the compiler that the memory location that you want to write the value that the user entered is right here, something like that. So you need to put this address operators just like that. So basically, it's always good to tell the person what you want to do. Instead of printing all these gibberish things that we're printing, I just want to say, you would see what I'm trying to do here. Let me just leave it empty there and you see what I'm trying to say. So you see, you are just getting a blank screen, but truly what is happening there, it is waiting for me to give a value. So I want to say, please maybe enter an integer, something like that. So that's what I wanted to say. And after that, I want you to see that there was an integer that was entered there. So I want to say printf maybe the value in that something like that is, then don't forget to put percentage %d there, and then put my now just like this, as best case this, boom, we are good to go. So what is going to happen here, let me do this. Oh, enter an integer. I forgot to put a slash n there. Okay, let me put 5 there. So it is going to say the enter the value is 5, just like that. So here, I think it is good to put maybe this one in some space or to just put a slash n so that when it is displaying, it will display nicely. Yeah, like this. So it's a enter in integer, and now I can write just down here. Maybe I can put 4, then I can say the value entered is what is 4, just like that. So the guy was asking that how can I use the scanf? That's how you use the scanf there. That's how you use the scanf. You want to take more values there. You can arrange them, but I do not advise you to do so. Like putting not a comma there, but putting maybe another percentage D. What happens is that, and maybe here I will put not, let me just put percentage F because that's the variable that I have. I think this one you can do this. I know I have a lot of time. Sorry, I need to put salary here. It have been long since I lastly code this language, but I know you can rightly do this. Here it will be asking you to enter 2 values, just like that. But here it have gave you the first one, boss. The first one goes into my num. That's why I got my num here. But salary, I didn't print it. That's why I only get a 2. So you can append this. You can take more than one value at a given moment. But the problem is you cannot tell the second value what is. So maybe you would say enter the first value for enter what something like that, and then you take them all at once. But I won't advise you to do that. I won't. It's not smart, but it's a functionality which is there. I just wanted to highlight. So basically, that's how you work with the variables. And what else? I think I've tried to explain everything. So the other thing, I think the other thing that I forgot to mention is what you call identifiers, right? Like the names that you give to your variables, to your functions, whatever, any name that you want to give, that's what you call an identifier. So there are rules of naming identifiers. So if you find something that asks about rules of naming identifiers, know that you are talking about rules of naming variables, rules of naming any keyword or any token in that programming languages. So what are those rules? So OC variables must be identified with unique names. That's the first thing. You cannot have 5 variables with the same name. So these names are what? Are unique. That's it. So also identifiers can be short names like XY. So you are not forced to say maybe the name should be this, the name of a variable. You can just put even one letter there. It's allowed. Any letter on the alphabet, A, B, C, D, whatever is the name of a variable. But normally we urge you to give those which are more descriptive, like those that have got a meaning. If you want to store age, why don't you store it in a variable called age? If you want to store the total sum, why not just say total sum or just say sum? If it is total volume that you want to store, just say the variable total volume. Why? Because it is more descriptive and it tells the person that this variable is going to do this, is going to store this, something like that. So it is common to use descriptive names in order to create understandable and maintainable code, just like that. So basically, these are the general rules that we have here. These are the basic general rules that you need to know. Why? Because by knowing them, you avoid to make a lot of errors when you are declaring variables. Simple. Besides, be for the purpose of exams and what, by knowing the rules of naming variables, the rules of naming identifiers, you know how to avoid to make errors when you are doing programming. Simple, just like that. So names are contain. So names can contain letters, digits, and underscores. That's the first thing. So whenever you are creating a name for a variable, it can contain letters, numbers, as well as an underscore. But take note that names must begin with a letter or an underscore. So a variable name can begin with a letter or an underscore. Otherwise, nothing else that you can use to start a variable. Names are case sensitive. You need to know that they are case sensitive. Small letter A and capital letter B, small letter A and capital letter A, they are different. This my var for variable and my var, this one, these will be two different variables. So it's just as good as if you have a variable called int C and a variable called int C. These are two different variables. Why? Because this is a capital letter C, this is small letter c. So C program is case sensitive. You need to know that. And names cannot contain white spaces or special characters. So in other words, you need to avoid a variable like int my number, something like this. There is no such a thing. The variable cannot have this space. What you can do maybe is to put an underscore, something like that. So these are basic things that you just need to know. And if you know them, you avoid to make errors. Also, reserved keywords such as int cannot be used as names. There's what you call reserved keywords, reserved words. So reserved words. So reserved words are keywords. Those words which are only for the programming language, which are already defined for the programming language. Like when I int, those with a special meaning, int, float, car, whatever, you cannot use them as a what? As a variable name, something like that. Even these hash include, you cannot use them. These are keywords. Like for whatever, all those, these are keywords. You cannot use them for as names of variables. So guys, that's all on variables. I don't know if there is any question here. I think what we need to look at is the data types. I think we've already talked about these data types: int, float, character, whatever. Also, there's the double. The double, I think, just the same as the float, but only it's different on the terms of precisions. Those numbers that you can get after decimal. So that's why so maybe the addition is double there. Otherwise, those are the basic things that we have. And the format specifiers, I think we have talked about it. Yes.
My question is on variables.
Mhm.
From what you have been saying on variables, the definition, I've heard the variable storage boxes and it.
Mhm.
Saka apa patatu kuti pamuruti how to name my variables.
Mhm.
We cannot use my special characters like int. Saka ma storage boxes edu kana toda kuisa ma integers. Haisi name here of that variable, that storage box. And yet kuno kuti fanira kushandisa ma special characters.
Okay, okay, yeah. So when it comes to memory, you need to understand one thing. When it comes to memory and variable, that's why I said, like when you are giving the definition of a variable, sometimes it will be told in a layman's language, right? And sometimes it will be told specifically. So when it comes to computer memory, it's just a generic memory that you have there, right? So this memory now, you want now to tell this memory, I want to store a type of integer. I want to store a type of, why? Because we do it when you create a program or when you are running your program. Now, whenever a certain value goes to a certain memory there, it needs to qualify for the specific type of data that you want to store there. That's the first thing. So yes, a variable is a box there that we can store a value during the execution of a program. But this box now needs to be told, this box that you are putting aside to store value, a certain, now we need to tell that there is a certain type that you want to store, right? Something like that. So you say int a. By saying int a, you are saying there is a variable a that you are declaring, that you are creating, and this variable a is only going to store my integers. So in other words, a is going to be that box that you are thinking of in general. When you are seeing a, see that box that you are thinking of. And that box is only going to store integers. So whenever I try to put something which is not an integer, boom, there is an error. There are safety measures which are there. That's why we do that. Just imagine someone trying to store a name where your program expects to see salary. something like that. So that's what is happening there. So when you are seeing that box, see a variable that you are declaring. So at int a, what it means is that you are putting aside a space in memory, and that space is going to be called a. Of course, it will be having an address, so it is going to be called a. And that memory space that you have put aside is only going to store my integers, just like that. I don't know if you have answered. If you are answered there.
I've been answered. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Munashe, you wanted to say something? Munashe Chiwai.
Yes, my question is directed to variables.
Yes.
So let's say I'm creating a program whereby I want to accept values, let's say a salary, and I don't know if the user has a salary with a decimal value or a whole number, and I want to accept both data types. Which one should I use, int or float?
Use a float. Why float? Because $20 is 20.00 or 20.0. So you use a float there.
All right.
Just like that. So it does allow you, like here, I've got float salary there. So it does allow me to put 20 here. I won't have any error if I do so. And what it does is, if I try to print that, let me just try to print percentage F. Maybe you might see what I'm saying, and then I'll put here salary here. So these are the basic. Like what I always say. Oh, yeah, it is asking me all these things. Okay, so the value entered is 20.00. Okay, but if you look at it, salary here, it wasn't just 20, it was 20.000. Don't be misled by this thing. It was already there. I just put salary here, something like that. So I hope you are answered. So maybe the other things, percentage S here for strings. This one normally, for now, we are going to talk about basic things. I didn't talk about the strings, like if you want to store your name, how do you do it, whatever. We are going to talk about it later, maybe after doing arrays. Can you make sure that you are all muted, unless if you want to say something? So for this one, we're going to talk about this percentage S. If you want to deal with strings, what do you do? There's a lot of things that that goes in that when talk about basic C programming language. But otherwise, that's it, guys. That's it. For data types, that's it. What if you want to control what? Decimal precision, like you can use this for the decimal precision. How many numbers do you want after a comma? Something like that. So you can use dot 2f. Instead of say percentage f, you can say dot percentage dot 1f, something like that. If you really want to control that, maybe I could take this out and try to remove this. Okay, let me do it without that that control. You see, I've got 20.00. What if I want to define the numbers that comes after a comma? Now you could say dot maybe 2f. By doing so, you could get two numbers after a comma, something like that. So that's how you do that. These are very, very basic things. Let's talk about constants. Guys, a constant is just a value that cannot change throughout the program or throughout that session of a program. So if you want that such type of variable, like you are creating a program to find the area of a circle, is pi r squared, right? And pi is a constant value. So you can give it keyword, and then you give it its type, and then the variable name, like the way you have the way you are used to declare variable, but only you add this keyword at the beginning. By doing so, you are saying this value is unchangeable, or it's a read-only value, something like that. So that's the const there. What else do we need there? Nothing. Let's talk about what you call operators. There is what you call arithmetic operators for addition, subtraction, multiplication, finding a module of given numbers, something like that. Increment and decrement operators. I think I'll try to be fast, but at the same time, I'll try to be helpful. I'll try to be fast at the same time, I'll try to be helpful. Please, let's make sure that we are always on mute. What happens is I'm on my headphones, so any slight noise there. Is it my network? What's the issue there? Okay, so on this one, on arithmetic or on arithmetic operators, I think this is very basic. The way you add, the way you subtract, the way you multiply, the way you divide, it's just the same when it comes to C programming. Maybe these are the area of interest. These ones, these are the area of interest. But basically, let's talk about these basic things that we are talking about. Because what I know is people will tend to say, okay, so if you can declare variables like int a, b, c, it's allowed to declare multiple variables in a single line, just like this. Why? Because these are just integer type. All of them are just integer types. So what if you want to say a will be initialized? Maybe you want to add two values like b plus c. So here, what I'm doing there is it's good, but it's not good. Why? Because I didn't give the value of a, the value of b, and the value of c. So what it means, this will be given a default value of 0, and this one default value of 0. So maybe I want to add 10 and I want to add 20 there. So it will be 10 plus 20, and then the result will be stored in A. So for me to see that, let me just use printf. So if you want to write a code, a program, that's what you do there. You need to know the order of things, like what are you going, or how are you going to do something like that. So here I'm going to say the value, maybe the value of A is the moment you say is, put the placeholder or the format specifier there, sorry, percentage %d, something like that. And then what I'll do there, I'll put A there. So let me run this, and you know that we're expecting to see a 30 there. So the value of A is 30, just like that. Boom. So that's what you do if you want to use an addition operator. If you want to subtract, it will be 10 minus 20. You know that you get a minus 10 there. And if you want to divide, you just put a division there. Maybe now the issue now comes maybe whenever you want to come up with a what do you call it? A formula there. Here I'm good. I'm getting a 0 just because I didn't use a float. A is an integer, but otherwise, maybe if I used a float number there, a float, maybe let me just say D there for division there, and let me just terminate there. So it's a floaty rather than that. Yes. So here, let me just say D, and then here it will be said the value of A is, but it's supposed to be the value of D. Let me just leave it like that. I think you see what I'm saying. So I'm getting a 0 again. Okay, I think it's because I didn't change this one. It's supposed to be percentage %f instead of percentage %d. So guys, like what I said before, know that you are going to make, so it is going to be 0.000. Why am I getting that 0.0000? B divided by C, 10 divided by 20. This is supposed to be that. Why is it like it's so I got a message. Why is it like it is being rounded off to a certain value? Okay, let me put a 25 there, and I just want to see what I will get there. I'm getting a 1 there, 1.00000. Why am I getting that? I think we need to investigate what's the implication of this. Because I'm thinking it was supposed to give me that, what you call it? Was I'm using a float. This one is an integer, this one is an integer, but dividing two integers, it's as good as I'm just taking, say, here, 7, maybe divided by 2, something like that. What am I supposed to get? Something like that. And why am I getting 0, 0? I think this is something that you need to go and look at as well. And then you tell me that. That's why I've
Hello,
always said, yes,
the screen you are sharing is not visible.
my screen is not visible. Is it the same for everyone? Is it
Mine
the
is
same for
visible.
everyone?
For me, it's visible.
Okay,
Then
okay.
for me,
Inenge network yake.
So maybe you can just
yes,
try to rejoin. You can just try to rejoin if you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So there's a hand by Wongani.
Oh, I wanted to say we are getting that value because if we divide 10 divided by 2, we get a 0. So it's only giving us the integer value and not the remainder. Like when you did put 25 divided by 20, it gets there into 1. So it only gets there into 1. So the figure that is giving us is the integer value of what we get when we divide that number by a certain number, but it won't give us the remainder. That's why we are getting those zero zeros and those three or the ones.
Yeah, you are very correct. But my question is, why am I not getting the remainder? Who said I do not want the remainder? That's what I said. You need to go and research on that. Why am I not getting the remainder? That I'm working with a float value here, and I'm not even like casting it to an integer at the result. I'm getting a float value, but I'm not getting the remainder there.
Yeah, because when we want to get the remainder, we use another operator which is different from that one, the modulus.
But by the virtue of division there, I should get a remainder. I don't know
Yeah,
if you are getting what I'm saying. By the
yeah,
virtue
I'm
of
getting you
dividing there, I should get a
that
remainder.
operator. That operator won't give us a remainder. That I think that's how C programming was designed, and those are the basics or the protocols of C that we cannot
What
defy. It's always like that, and it's been said like that.
what if we use a double a different variable type and use double instead of float there?
Use double instead of float. Let's
Mm.
experiment. I'm trying to prompt us to think and to research and to see what works and what not work. Like what I always say, I'm still getting this. Like what I always said, it's always good to research, and maybe someone to Google it for us to see why are we not getting what we wanted here. Why are we not getting what we wanted? Maybe you need to also research on the issue of casting them. How do you cast variables, something like that? I think it would help us as well to get the float or whatever the number that we want there as a result there. If you want to cast it, something like that. So you could go and research on it and tell us how do we get that. It's a good thing. Whenever you are practicing, whenever you are coding, that's what you see there, right? So like here, what if I try
Say,
to yes?
uh, issue yenyu say haizi kuti mati b divided by c where I see those are both ints, right? And this C program, perform an integer division. Saka
Mhm.
the part I lose it.
Hatisofanirwa kutoiluza ipa ndo zviri kuitika zvautaura exactly that's what is happening. But what if I want to get a remainder? The fix is just you need to cast. There's what you call casting a variable. Like the result that you are going to get there, you are getting an integer, but you wanted to get a float. So you cast it to tell the compiler that I want a float, I do not want an integer, something like that. That's what that's what you're supposed to do.
Alright.
That's
Kumaka
mhm.
oh mati double d madi kuti float d and then pazasi pacho mati d is equals to float b divided by c.
That's what I've done. If I say here, so there are rules again for casting. There are rules again for casting. If you say B divided by C, I will just get 25 divided by this one. I'll just get a number with this one 1.25 as well. If you want to control the numbers of commas after, that's where you put a dot, maybe 2, something like that, 2f, and then you to get 1.25. I think that's what you get, 1.25. So after all, I wanted to prompt us to see why are we getting that integer. So by casting, if you want to cast, that's what you do. If you want to get the result as an integer as well, you can say you can cast it to int by just say int here, something like that. So there are variables that you can cast, but I cannot cast it to a to characters, something like that. You need also to make sure that what you have here, the variable that you have here, and what you are casting here can work together, something like that. So if you can cast it to a float, it's fine. It can take the result as a float and then store it in D. Why? Because D is a float type, data type, something like that. Anyway, you can read and read and read. And then the other thing is the modulus. The modulus, use it whenever you want to get a remainder. It's a very, very important thing here. If you want to get a remainder, you use that modulus. And let me remove this and allow me to work with the integers as well. Allow me to work with the integers here. So if you want to get a remainder, let me take out this. So if you want to get a remainder, guys, make use of the remainder operator, something like that. So here I'm going to have a percentage D. So you use this modulus. So if you say B modulus C, what are we expecting to get? What are we expecting to get? What will be the result of this if I run this? If I say B modulus C,
It will be 5.
it will be 5. Why 5,
Yes.
Wilfred? Why 5?
Because modulus only takes into account the remainder after you have divided.
So it's 20 divided by 5, and then you get so it's 25 divided by 20. So it's 1 remainder 5. So you get 5. So this is very, very helpful whenever you want to find a number. If a number is even or odd, you could use this operator as well. So it's very, very helpful. How we could talk about it later. There's what you call an increment and a decrement operator. These symbols, whenever you want to increment by 1 or decrement by 1, use this plus plus operator. Or you want to decrement by 1, use this minus minus operator. But there's a trick that you need to know when you are using this. I think it's more good if we talk about it. Okay, so here, let me remove this. So here I'm going to work with C. Let me work with the C here. Okay, so if I come here and say C++, what could be the output here? If I say C++,
It will be 21.
it could be 21, right? So if I run this, I'll get 21. Why? Because C++, I'm saying increment C by 1. So it's as good as C is equal to C plus 1, something like this. That's what I'm doing. So if I run this, I'm getting a 22, something like that, because I have C++ and then something like that. So this is what is happening there. If you want to decrement it, use C minus minus. That's the decrement operator there, C minus minus. And then run this. You to get a 19 there. And then there's one thing that I wanted to say, which I said it's a little bit trickier. What if you say minus minus C and do this? What if you say minus minus C? It's just the same as C plus as C minus minus, but when say minus minus C, there is a little bit trick that goes there. Let me just say A, let me put A is equal to C. Let's start with a plus plus, C plus plus. Then I'll print the value of A here. Let me just the value of A is. So I want someone to tell me what could be the value of A. Sorry, let me just put the value of A here as 10 when I'm declaring it. So what could be the value of A now? Just wanted to see. Marvin, you want to say something? What could be the value of A here?
21.
We say 21.
I say
Wilfred.
21. Yes,
26.
I say 21.
Others,
26.
26. Others. I'm getting
21.
wrong. I'm getting wrong answers. I'm getting wrong
31
answers.
is it?
21.
31.
31. Okay, let me try it and see what could be the result. I'm getting a 20. I knew it. I'm getting a 20, not a 21. So that's when it becomes a little bit trickier there on C++. What happens when you say C++? Okay, so in short, I have A as 10 here, but the value that I'm going to put in A is the one which is going to determine the value that I'm going to get here. Why? Because I'm going to replace the 10 with the value that I'm getting here. So when you say C++, normally what happens is when you write it this way, you're saying first use the value of C that you have and then later on increment the value of C. So you do use 20 that you already have. So in A, you put 20 and then you increment later. So for C, you get 21, but for A, you get 20. So if I say the value of A is, then let me say, and maybe the value of C, so that you could see what I'm talking about is, then I'll put percentage D as well. Then I'll put C here. Maybe you could see what I'm talking about. So it would be the value of A is 20 and the value of C is 21, just like that. So what happens is at first you use the value of C, you use it to store in A, and then after that you increment. So it's different. It is different now when you say plus plus C. If you say plus plus, you are saying first increment C and then use the value that you get. So now you get 21 for A and 21 for what? For C. So that's what I only wanted to show you. So you get a 21 and then you get a 21, something like that. So it's just the same with the decrement operator. By doing so, you first decrement the value of C and then you store it in A, and that will be also the secondary, or that will be also the final value that you get also for what? For C, just like that. By doing so. So guys, that's how 1919, just like that. If you say C minus minus, what happens is you are saying, first I want to use the value of C, and then later on I want to increment. I want to decrement. So you get a 20 and a 19, just like that. I think it's self-explanatory. So I wanted to minimize this. So that's all on this one. I don't know if there's so that's all on what do you call them? Those arithmetic operators. Then now let's talk about the assignment operator. Like what I've said before, the assignment operator is the one that you call the equal sign in mathematics. Here it's the assignment operator. We use it to assign values to variable symbol. So whenever you see this single equal sign here, you call it the assignment operator. We assign 10 into the variable x, or we assign 10 in that box that we are talking about, or in that memory that we are talking about. So that's what we are doing. We assign a value. And then what happens if you say x plus, then you use the assignment operator there, then you put a 5 there. So normally, if you say here, I put a 10 here, and I put a plus, it's as good as you are saying, let me put in comments, you are saying A is equal to A, or is assigned to A plus 10. That's what you are doing there. That's what you are doing. In other words, if you do so, you say A is assigned to A plus 10. If you say A plus, so if something is missing here and then you are saying A plus, then equal sign this one. So you are saying A is assigned to A plus 10, something like that. So if you do so, you are going to get a 20 for A, because we already have 10 here. So it will be 10 plus 10. So you are going to get a 20 there, something like that. So it's just the same whenever you have a division here, you are just say A. If you put a division here, something like this, it's just A is assigned to A divided by 10, something like that. So that's what you'll be doing there. So you can use it with any arithmetic operator that we're talking about, except the decrement and the increment operator. So you can use it with the multiplication, with the whatever, with the modulus, with this one, and the greater than or the less than, something like that. And these others, we are not yet talking about this, so let's leave them for now. Now let's talk about the comparison operators. If you want to compare things, what do you do? If you want to compare things, so normally if you want to compare things, you can use the equal sign. This is the equal sign. If you want to check if this something is equal to this something, you know, that's when you use those things. Like here, if I want to compare that, sorry, this is not the right way to do it. Maybe you want to compare, let me say, is this going to work? Logically it's supposed to work. Yes, I'll get a 0 there. I'll get a 0. Why am I getting a 0 there? Is it a equal to, it's not. Why? Because I've already changed the value of a here. So a is no longer equal to 10. A is now equal to 20. So I'll get a 0 whenever a is not equal to. Whenever the result is not true, you get a 0. If it is true, you get a 1. Something like that. So you can use also the not equal to check if things are not equal, something like that. You can also use the greater than, the less than to check. And what happens is it gives you a 1 if it is greater than, or if it is true, otherwise it gives you a 0. Then you can use this is the greater than or equal to. This is the less than or equal to. We will use them whenever we do the if else, what, blah, blah, blah. That's when we are mostly use these things. Then there are logical operators. The logical operators like the and, the or, the not. These things you've done them in a mathematical foundation where you were doing logical operators. I know you to say we didn't do that, but I think you've already read about it. So there's what you call an AND gate, an OR gate, a NOT gate. You need to know them. If you do not know them, I don't know what you are doing. So normally in programming, we use this for AND. If you want to maybe put together a certain statement and another statement and want to compare them, whatever you want to compare, they use this. You are going to see when you're using them. And for all, use this pipe, the double pipe, whatever, quite a pipe, this one. If you look at your keyboard, you see it actually straight. So where there's a backslash there, normally Pamaquet keyboards, where there's a backslash, if you press shift and press there, you see that symbol that you're talking about. And then the note is this one. And then for this precedence, whatever, we're not going to talk about those things, but these are the main basic operators that you want: the arithmetic, the assignment, and the comparison, as well as the logical operators. Then we are good to go. And then let's talk about the Boolean. Boolean is also a data type in C. And normally we use the bool keyword. And for you to use it, you need to include the standard library, header file, std bool. And normally that's when you'll be able to use true or false, the keyword true or false, something like that. Otherwise, you'll be using the binary values 1 or 0, like what you're doing when you're doing the operators, like is it equal, they need to return a 0 or a 1 for true or false, something like that. And 0 it will be false, and true it will be 1, something like that. So you can also import this library and start to use true or false, something like that. But it's not area of interest to us. Now let's look at the if else. So there are people who are saying, say on control structures, These are control structures. Whenever you want to do something after taking a decision, that's when these control structures comes in. Remember, when it comes to software, you want to do something after seeing that something had happened or something like that. So whenever I want to evaluate something for you to do something, that's when these control structures come in. So there's what we call the if else statements, right? So normally when it comes to if else statements, you've already learned about these comparison operators: the less than or equal to, this one is the less than or equal to, this one is the greater than, this one the greater than or equal to, this one is the equal sign, this one is not equal. So you can use these conditions to perform different actions for different decisions. So C is the following conditional statements: the if. So you use if to specify a block of code to be executed if a specified condition is true. Then you use the else part to specify a block of code to be executed if the same condition is false, and use the else if to specify a new condition to test if the first condition is false, just like that. Maybe you want to test more. That's when you put the else if. And then use a switch to specify any alternative blocks of code to be what to be executed. This one, talk about it later. So this is the syntax. You say if you put the condition, then you put the block of code that you want it to happen. Just like that. So like here, if it 20 is greater than 18, you want to say printf, oh, 20 is greater than 18, just like that. It's a silly thing, but sometimes you want to do something more than that, right? Like here, you've got this one and you want to do this, whatever, something like that. So there's if and then there's the else part. So I need to check this call. Sorry for that. I think it was a very, very important call that I needed to check. Okay, so I was talking about the issue of if and else block. Okay, so I wanted to do something like taking all these things out and try something. Int age, let me put 10 there. What can I do with this? I want to say if, so normally when you say if, you put this, that's the syntax there. So here you put the condition here, that's where you put the condition. Here, that's where you put the code. I hope, okay. So here, that's where you put the code here that you want to be executed if this condition is true. So I want to say if age is greater than 18, we want to say printf ndo pipelines tinosunga mwene webha wanted to those that trending thing. So if age is less than 18 tinosunga mwene webha, but if age now is less than, sorry, if age is greater than 18, you are older. So you are older enough to be in a bar, something like that. Okay. So here, Mwenwe Bawa is safe if your age is greater than 18. Okay, so I'm going to execute this and I'm expecting to see nothing. Why am I getting nothing here? Why am I getting nothing?
Because there is no condition to specify when the condition, where there's nothing to do when the condition has not been met.
Okay. Yeah, Wilfred is saying it and he's understanding it. I don't know others. Maybe they're too afraid to say or whatever. I don't know. Am I moving with one
Sorry.
person? Yes, Ati.
Sorry, I didn't get the answer. I didn't get the answer. Please, may he repeat? May my friend repeat?
I was saying, why am I getting nothing if I run this program? Why am I getting nothing here? There's nothing being printed out here. That was the question.
I said I didn't get his reasons.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay, so the reason was that I'm giving the answer. Okay. The reason is that because age is not greater than 18, so this code is not going to be executed, or this block here. So everything inside this block is not going to be executed. Why? Because the age is not greater than 18. Something like that. So what if you want something to be printed or you want something to be done if the condition is false? What if you want something to be done if the condition is false? So what you do is you put the else block, you say else keyword, and then you put a block. So everything that you put here, we only execute if this block is false. So if this condition is false. So if it is false, now we could printf. We put that famous thing there. I don't know if I'm too old to know this, but that's where we say tinosunga mwene
No,
webhawa handiti. I know it came from Chipinge side, what there. So what happens is if your age is not greater than 18, tinosunga mwene webhawa. So what is happening here is that the condition is false. That's why we are executing the else part. Otherwise, we are going to execute this just like that. I think it's very, very simple and very basic, right? Okay,
okay.
so okay, I think it was you were in agreement with me. So now that's the if else part, right? So that's the else part, if and the else part. So you put the condition, you put the code there. If the condition is false, the else will get executed. Otherwise, you execute what's in here. So it's very, very good to always put an if and an else condition, but it's not everywhere you need to do that.
Sorry,
Yes.
sorry, sir. I just want to whether I understood the if and else.
Okay.
Let's say I have used the ATM severally.
Mhm.
Maybe I can say maybe that's how they were programmed. Maybe to say if he enters the correct password,
Mhm.
you proceed to the next part of or maybe procedure or to maybe to getting the money, or else let's say you avoid tadza ku enter the correct password, else display error logs an incorrect pin.
Yeah, it's something like that. Though that scenario is mostly for a loop, a while loop, where you'll be saying the person will be in a loop of entering password. If you enter the password maybe 3 times, then it gets blocked or something like that. But you can refer this to when someone tries to maybe to withdraw money from the card and then the balance is insufficient. So it's as good as we are checking if the balance or if the amount you want to withdraw is not more than the balance, something like that. So if the money that you want to withdraw is more than the balance that you have, then we could say, no, you could not withdraw or insufficient. Otherwise, we could allow you to withdraw. That's when I think that's the best fit scenario that you can use those if and else statements.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome. So now let's look at for the short end, if you are not going to look at it, it's going to mess our code. You do it whenever you are pro, when you know what you are doing. For those who are already at an advanced stage, I'm very, very fine with it. You can use it, I know it, but I do not want it to spoil our code. Let's talk about the else if. Let's talk about the else if part, and then we talk about the nested if part. The nested, then you are good to go. Okay, so now let's look at the else if. So whenever you want to check more conditions, maybe you want to do a grading system, normally that's when you normally use those else if, something like that. So if you want to check the first condition, the second condition, the third condition on the same maybe on the same block of code like this one, if else if whatever. So if you want to check on the same value that you want to check, you could use this if else if. So you want to check more than one condition at the same time, something like that. That's when you use if else if something like that. So what happens is it will check this condition. If the condition is false, then to check the next condition. If the next condition is true, it will just execute that condition. Then boom, it goes away from that chain of if else, something like that. But if the condition all the else if and this if are false, then it will run what is in the else part, something like that. Let's think of maybe here, let me have another, instead of having an else here, let me put an else if. So whenever I say else if, you are now putting a condition there. We are no longer looking at the issue but what we are looking at now, maybe let's say you are old enough maybe to donate blood. Yes, let's say to donate blood, something like that. You're old enough to donate blood, but maybe also need to wait for us to donate blood, right? So let me have a float. Weight is some kind of a float number. Let me put 40 there. So what I'm going to do is, what happens is okay, so if, though it's not going to make some sense there, but let's just demonstrate using it. So I'm going to say if weight is greater than 50, let me say it's greater than 50, then what happens is I'm going to say printf, I'm going to say you can donate blood, something like that. Then I'll terminate. What is going to happen here is and after this I'll put in else, something like that. Sorry, for an else, just put this. What I'm going to do is let me just say else here, or else part, just like that, just to say that we are no longer printing whatever, blah blah. So what is happening here, I'm going to get the else part. Why? Because the age here itself is not greater than 18. So if you put 20, sorry, not here. If you put 20 here, it's obvious you are going to get, you are older enough. Let me put again 100 here. There's something that I want you to see. So what you are going to see here, age is greater than 20, is greater than 18. So this is supposed to be printed. But at the same time, weight is greater than 50. So this is supposed to be printed. But because we are having if, else, if, and then else, so what happens is, we evaluated this first. If this one is true, then we executed this and we jump everything and print whatever and do whatever that comes after this else. That's what happens there. So I'm just going to get, you are older enough to donate blood, just like that. But this one, you can donate blood. I'm not seeing it. Why? Because it's on the, it's a condition which is on the second part. So this one only get evaluated if it is true, then we run this. Then if it is false, we check on the next condition. If it is true, then we run it. If it is false, we go to else. So you can chain a lot of else if statements, just like that. You are not limited to that. So you let me put a 10 here. You could see what I'm talking about. Now you could see you can donate blood. That's what you're going to see, just like this. That's what is happening there. So you can use this one mostly when you're doing like the grading. If you're asked to do a grading, something like that, you can have int grade. Let me see if I can quickly come up with this one. Maybe let me put a 10 there for grade. I'm not saying you are going to get a 10, guys. I know you are going to score 100 out of 100. You are going to all get distinctions, but allow me to use that 10 there. Maybe for the very, very few. Okay, so what happens here, if you want to do a grading there's something that I want to involve again that we didn't talk about. I think it's on the logical operators. I think yes, this one on the logical operators. I think let me just involve them, because when you're doing grading, we'll be using them. Okay, so the logical operators, you use them whenever you want to compare whatever, whenever two things that you want to two conditions that you want to compare on the same if statement, something like that. Like you want to check if A is greater than B and C greater than A, then also then you say something that you want to do. So whenever both are true, that's when this block gets executed, something like that. When you are using or, you just need one condition to be true. If this one is true or this one is true, then both you are using an or. You do not want them both to be true, something like that. And a not looking at if it is not this, if this one is not true, then it do this, something like that. So if you are saying A greater than B, so if A is not greater than B, then do this. That's the issue of the not operator, just like that. So that's how it comes into play when it comes to this one. So if I want to create, maybe I want to say if, so I normally do this, then ndozodzoka so that ndagara ndaisa zvimwe zvisazondinetsa kuti just to put the structure of the if statement. So I want to check if grade, so if grade is greater than, maybe let me just greater than or equal to 0, and if you want to say you put this ampersand operator, and grade is less than or equal to 20, then what I'm going to say is so this one is not the grade though, this one is the mark. Sorry, it was supposed to be mark. Someone was supposed to be corrected me. It's a mark, then we give a grade there. So this one is a mark, and then we give a grade according to your mark. Sorry. Okay, so here I'm going to use character, and then I'm going to say grade, and so here I'm going to say grade will be you. I think this is sorry, and you need to put in a single quote there, in single quotes. So I'll give a U for someone who will be having a mark between 0 and 20, something like that. And else if, something like that, else if, so this is what else do. So else if the mark is let me say the mark is now greater than 20, which means I'm starting at 21, something like that, and the mark is less than or equal to let me just say 30, or let me just say 40. I'm going to give grade to, I'm just putting the value in grade, then I'll just print it later. I was just going to print the grade or something like that. Anything can do there. So I'm going to say grade is I'm going to put an E there. It's what?
I was saying D kuti zvikwanirane zviri 5 sei.
It's okay, no problem. I'm just demonstrating and what blah blah, but it's okay. And then what I'm going to do is here I'm going to put another else if what you do there, I always do this. Yes, then here I'm going to put mark, if now mark is greater than 40, but and mark is less than or equal to 49, then I'll say the grade is going to be assigned to sort to D. And then what I would do is I would go on to say if grade is whatever until I got to an A, where you always want it there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an else there and close this and say grade. I want to say grade is passed there. Let me just put a P, sorry. I'm just going to put a P that the grade is passed, something like that. So what happens is this grade is going to be given a value according to what we have put here. And take note of that. When I say the else here, I'll be taking other values that I do not want, but I'll talk about it later as a way of improvement. Okay, so I'm going to run it, but here, what I'm not going to get anything. So I want to print the grade. So now I'm going to print F and say, your grade or the grade is, let me not give people grades here. So the grade is, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use percentage C as a remainder there, as a, not a remainder, but as a placeholder. And then here I'll put grade here. So what happens is, so let me terminate this one as well. So guys, what am I going to get as the output? What am I going to get? Okay, let me just run so that you could see what you can get. The grade is you. Why the grade is you? Am I getting the grade is you? Yeah.
Because it is between 0 and 20.
You see, so that's what happens there. So it is checking is the mark between 0 and 20. So if it is so, then it gives grade U. If mark is greater than 20, less than or equal to 40, it gives. So what if I put 60 here? What do I get? I get a pass, I get a P, I did, right? Then there's one thing that I've said, there's a room of improvement here. What if I put minus 100? What do I get? If I put a minus 100, what do I get? I'm looking for those here. This is the code here. If I put, can I zoom out this? I can't. I thought there's a. What do I get here?
Can you go back to the code, sir?
Someone to try. Okay, to the code. This is the code. This is the code. Here I have minus 100 in the mark, and here is the code. I've got if, else if, and then else. Then they am printing the grade. What do I get? If I put minus 100.
So,
I think you get a P.
A pass, yeah.
Why a P? Someone saying you get a P. And that person is brilliant and genius. It's Munashe. Is it Munashe?
Yes, yeah, it's Minash. I think it's because for everything that we have written in the if statements is between 0 and 49, and then anything else, any other number that is not between 0 and 49 is a P.
Exactly. That's when I saw it when I did this, and that's when I said there's a room of improvement. That's what you need to do there. So you need to make sure that you guard the code. Here I'm getting a P there, and it's wrong. So you need to guard the code so that anything which is not within the range, 0 and 100, it's an invalid mark, something like that. So maybe we're supposed to say, else if we're supposed to have an else if here. If we got tired to implement everything, they were supposed to just have an else if there, maybe mark, if mark is greater than 49, and the mark is maybe uh, less than or equal to 100, then we could say grade is what is P there. And then here we could say invalid mark or something, whatever that can represent an invalid mark here. If we say invalid mark is going to be represented by an I, or you could just print that it is an invalid mark, something like that. Instead of just, I think it's good to just print that this is an invalid mark instead of putting in a character there. I think that's what makes sense for me. The printf, then you could say invalid mark, or you have entered an invalid mark, something like that. So if you do so, you could now get the invalid mark. Sorry, the grade is always get printed. So let me, could I return here? I think I could do. I'm trying to mess with the C programming here. I am messing with the C programming. Yes, I'll get invalid mark and then it will return 0 there. Sorry for this, but it works. What it means is that if you put a 10-0 there, you are telling the operating system that everything have got run, and at this point, terminate this program. That's what this return 0 means. So your main program, after running everything in your main function, so you put a return 0 to tell the compile, not the compiler, but the operating system to say, please terminate this program. Everything in this program has been whatever has been executed. So that's the end of a program. So whenever I want to say this is the end of a program, just return 0. Boom, then you are good to go. So I've returned a 0 here to prevent this to be printed whenever we are in this else part. I think it's a simple and easy to understand. But anyway, we are not going to use it for this purpose of exams, whatever. So now let's talk about the switch statement. And unless if there are questions on the use of if statement, of the if and the else, what. Maybe the nesting part, right? We didn't nest the if else statement. You need to understand that you can also nest, guys. Nesting is to put an if inside an if statement. That's the very, very simple part of everything that we've done. That's the very, very simple part of it. If you want to nest, you can just do this. Like what I was saying, like what I said here. Instead of doing this, you can just nest. Okay. Let me take out this. Okay, let me go back to the issue of int age. Then int or float weight. Let me put 16. And now I want to say if age is greater than 80, and the inside I want to put another if statement. And this is the nested if statement. So you can nest the if. So when you are saying nesting, you are putting another if statement inside an if statement. So yeah, if you are nesting a while loop, a for loop, you are putting a for loop inside a for loop, something like that. That's nesting. So here I can say if now weight is greater than 50, now I could say printf. You can donate blood, something like that. So we are no longer talking about whenever power. So here I will say you can donate blood. Why? Because your age is greater than 18 and your weight is greater than 50. So it's just like a normal if statement. If this one is true, it gets inside the if statement and immediately it will get another if statement. What does it do? It evaluates the condition. If it is true, it gets inside, right? So you can have an else again here for this if statement, just in case if this one is not true, it's not going to execute this, but it is going to execute what is in here, something like that. You can also have an else to this block. So you're just nesting, something like that. So if this is true, it is going to check this, or if it is true, it is going to do this. Then boom, we are out of all these else and else blocks. Those are not going to execute. But if this is false, it is going straight to this else part. But if it is this true and this is false, it goes to this else part, just like that. I think it's just common logic and a little bit of common sense, something like that. Let's now look at what we call a switch statement. So what is very, very important, guys, to come to these things, not the syntax or the grammar of it. How do you write a switch statement? So this is the basic of it. You're going to have the keyword switch, and you're going to have an expression. Then you're going to have a keyword case, and then you're going to have these things, the case numbers, X, Y, Z, whatever. Those are case numbers. And then you're going to have this break to break each and every what we call a case, and then you're going to have what you call a default case, which is going to always execute if the expression doesn't match any of these case numbers. So guys, the keyword switch or the switch expression is evaluated once. Okay, this one is only evaluated once. And after that, the value of the expression is compared with the values of each case. So it is going to compare with each and every case the value that you get here. And if there is a match, the associated block of code is executed. So it will execute the associated block of the code. And then if there's if the break statement, so the break statement breaks out of the switch block and stops the execution. So whenever you meet the break, it goes out of the switch statement. So you not down block or then out on execution, something like that. So the default statement is optional and specifies some code to run if there is no case match, just like that. So let me just take this whole thing. I'm a little bit less to write, but I just want it to demonstrate what I want to demonstrate, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, allow me to take everything out, except one thing that I want, but let me take everything out to make things simple. Let me just have these things. There are too many. To make it simple, let me remove everything here and left with something basic. Let me remove everything here and left with something basic that everyone can see. Okay, so what I'm going to do is here, let me put one. So the syntax is that you need to have the switch keyword, and then here you have an expression, and that expression mostly results into a character, either a 1, an X, a Y, a Z, or something like that. And that thing must match whatever you have as case numbers here. So what happens is, if you want to select case 1, you just put whatever this one needs to evaluate to 1, and whatever in case 1 you run. So you have put 1, so I'm going to get a Monday there. All right, so you're choosing a day of a week. So if you put 2, you are going to get a Tuesday. Why didn't I get Monday, then Tuesday? Why? Because I've choose case 1. So if you forgot to put this break, I want you to see what happens. You get Monday, Tuesday, like this, Monday, Tuesday. Why? Because after this case, it didn't break our way out of it. So it will keep on continuing running until it sees what? The break. So please do not forget to put that break. Why? Because whenever you forgot to put this break, whenever it matches the case number, it runs until it sees a break. Whenever it sees a break, then it goes out of the switch statement. So it means it will run everything that comes after this block here. I can say printf, printf, and then I would say out of switch statement. Boom. So whenever you code kunonetsa pepe, you just mean that it's very simple. So I think whenever now you want to make something that really okay. So here say Monday, then out of whatever. So it is printing Monday, and then after that it jumps and it goes out of the switch statement and it print this one. Let me put a \n here to just start this on a new line so that we would get this. So that what happens there with a switch statement. Maybe what I would want to do here to demonstrate on the switch is the use of the default. This one. Default normally comes in or chips in whenever you try to put an invalid. So I want to say invalid selection. Whenever you want to put an invalid choice there or invalid selection or whatever. Let's say like I want to put 5, but if you look at it, we do not have a case 5. So what happens is just print the default and it will say invalid selection, and then out of that. So it's not necessary to break this default. It's not necessary to break that default. Why? Because that's the last case. Unless, because it's not mandatory as well. In Java, it's not mandatory to put the default at the end. Let me try with the C to see if it is the case. Let me put a break here. Let me see if it is the case with the C. Yes, invalid selection. Yes, that's why I always say C, Java, what. If you learn C, you have learned everything. So what happens is the default case, it's not mandatory to put it at the end. So if you put it at the end, there's no need of putting a break. But if you put it inside the cases, you need to break. Why? Because by failure to break, you know what happens. It runs the default case and the case that comes until it sees the break. But always what is convenient, make sure that you put the break at the end of the switch statement. That's what is convenient. I don't know if I've got questions for the switch case. But otherwise, that's what you do with the switch case statement. So normally this is the basic of it, but you can use it maybe if you want to do something specific after giving a choice. So you could just ask the person, enter 1 for addition, enter 2 for this. After that, then you could choose the case according to what you know. This is for addition, this is for enter plus for addition, enter something like that. And then if person enter an addition, so here you'll be using a character here instead of something like that, character C. And then here you pass that character. If that character matches a plus here. So if I put, sorry, the character, if it is a plus there, here, if it is minus there, and then here, instead of there here, maybe I would say what? I don't know what to put there. Let me just say choice there. But you need to declare choice there as character there, character choice, and then let me put a character as a plus there. So what happens is there, I'm going to print plus there. If you put a plus there, then I'm going to print a plus there. Let me see what happens there. I'm sure I'm not going to get an error. So you are getting a plus there. So what you do is you just put the code to add there. So maybe you ask now the person enter 2 numbers or the numbers that you want to add, and then you just add and then you give it the result, something like that. So you could use that to put a plus, addition, subtraction. Maybe you want to do a calculator as well. You can implement it using a switch statement. I don't know if I've got questions here or contributions. I think I want to move to the next concept. I thought I could finish, but I'm seeing we cannot finish. But I think we could do this tomorrow to finish rather than do mathematical foundation. And I'll find where I'll put mathematical foundation so that we could finish. But let's try to push so that we do the while loop, so that we do the loops. After doing the loops, maybe the arrays, whatever, something like that, and then we'll do finish whatever we want to do, maybe on the next lecture, and we could revise a lot there. Okay, so what else? Wilfred, do you want to say something?
Oh, yes. I wanted to ask, if we completely leave out the break at the end, does it continuously give us those cases infinitely? Or it will just give us until there are no more cases?
Okay, so what happens is, I think it's very basic here. If you do not put a break at the end, what happens is very, very simple. If it is the last case like this default, like I've put an A here, what happens is it just goes here, and when it reaches the end of the switch statement, it goes out of that block. It goes out of this block. It's not a loop, so it doesn't do looping or it doesn't do iterations. So if I've put an A there and compare this and run, you could see I'll get invalid selection and out of switch statement. Out of switch statement is this statement which is out of this switch statement. So after reaching the end, if there's no break there, it doesn't go back to do the plus there and then break. No, it just goes out of that block. Why? Because it's not an iteration, it's not a loop structure there. It's just you go from here to here. Kana tosvike kunoko zvatofanana switch statement. So it will be looking for a perfect match. Once it sees the match there, then it starts to execute until it sees the break statement. Otherwise, it stops when it sees this end of switch statement block, just like that. I hope you are answered there.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Then Devson, you want to say something? Devson? Devson. You can unmute yourself. You are muted if you want to say something. Devson Taru Garira. Okay, maybe you might not know how to, you can type in the chat there. Can you have duplicate case values in switch case statements? Why do you do that? You want to confuse the compiler, want to confuse the computer. Why do you want to do that, Devson? I am lost per switch statement. Sandra, where do you lost exactly? Can only type. Okay, Devson. So Devson, the issue is you cannot duplicate the cases because by doing so you are confusing it. You are confusing it. So if you say you want to duplicate here, you put a plus, here you put a minus. So if you put plus here, what do you think will happen there? So you cannot use the same case like case one, case one, case one, case one. Then here you put the choice as one. So what happens? Which one do you want to be executed? So logically, it doesn't make any sense to do that. So that's why I've said you want to confuse it. Sandra, you've said you are lost. I don't know where you are lost per switch statement exactly. I don't know. If you could say something, I think I could help. Ngomo, you want to say something? Ngomo Samson? Contribution or question, you can go ahead. Ngomo Samson. Maybe if you cannot mute yourself, if you cannot unmute yourself, are we able to get the recording? I'm sure you are able to get the recording because I'm recording, unless if something happened and it is stopped, but it's recording. Okay, so on everything per switch, I think that answer I cannot help because even now I was saying something. I was responding to something to a question that was raised, and I said something on switch. I think you need to try to be specific, unless if you were not in the lecture. Try to be specific. If you say everything, should I have to repeat everything on switch statement? Like everything word to word, or there is a key area that you could say maybe on the it's not a condition but on the expression rather, maybe on the break, or maybe on the whatever, on the case numbers, whatever that you want to ask them, maybe try to rephrase your question so that I could help. Otherwise, if it is on everything per switch statement, then I am not understanding exactly. If you say everything, should I have to repeat everything? Komo, you are not saying something. Patience, you want to say something? I hope Sandra, you are typing something else.
Sam.
Yes, Patience.
Ndokumrodzokera kuya kwanga kune macodes. There's a statement I want to understand. Yeah, apa pakanzi invalid selection.
Yes.
Can you please explain between the invalid selection and auto switch statement, the two of them, with my purposes as on this regime?
You can come again. Maybe one break.
I mean, what is the purpose of invalid? Like, if you put something that is invalid and it prints out invalid selection, then what is the purpose of auto switch statement?
Okay, this one was to demonstrate what happens if you reach the end of a switch statement. Like if you reach the end of a switch statement, it breaks out of the switch statement and goes to run whatever comes after the switch statement. So it wasn't necessary to put this, but it was just there to demonstrate for you to see. After maybe picking this case number, after reaching this break statement, it discards everything here and goes to run what is out of this switch statement, which is the next line that comes out of the switch statement, just like that.
I now understand. Thank you.
Yes, and this default is just there for you if the person now put a wrong choice. Like you might be asking a person to say enter plus for addition, and maybe a person would put an A. So just want to tell that person that you have entered an invalid selection. You do so by indicating it in the default part, something like that.
Okay.
Yes, I don't know this user with the 28. I don't know what's your name. Your hand is up and I can't read your name. What's your name? I think you can start by saying your name. Yes.
It's Christian.
Okay.
Okay, so can you go to the code? I want to ask something.
All right.
Okay, like tine issue yekuti apa tiri kushandisa ma-operators handisi plus minus. And we are using single quotes. Then patati tichitsvaga pataisa ma-days of the week, patati case 1, 2, we didn't use ma-quotes. So kana kunzi like tati case 1 ndobva ndaisa ma-single quotes error here.
Inokupe error for apa ikupe error just because here I've got a choice. The issue is what you put here as case number needs to match the data type that you are putting here. So, or the type of the expression that you are putting here. So if I put days, now, so if I put a day, now I'm getting an error here if I try to put a single character, if I try to put a plus here. Why? Because day is an integer. So these are numbers 1, 2, 3, -5, blah, blah, or something like that. So here we are expecting to see a number. So if you put a 1 inside the quotes, it's a character. It's a character type, this one. It's not an integer type. So what you need to do is to put 1 and to put 2, or to put any number which is an integer, or even to put 20 or 10, 19, or to put -30, something like that. So that's what you'll be doing. So what you put here is determined by what you have here. If here I'm using a character like I wanted to put a choice, do you want to add enter plus for addition, something like that, then here I'm forced to use a character, and here I'll be forced to use a character as the case number, something like that.
Okay, say thank you.
You're welcome. I think that one will help also Davson on the issue of using other types. Yes, you can use those types as much as you are able to know how to write them here. You can use any other types. You can use a float, you can use, but needs to match what you put here. Type, it needs to match with what you put here. But you cannot put an expression. That's not way to put an what do you call it? The whatever you put here needs to be end up being a single value of a certain type. Whatever you put here, just like that. I don't know if I've got any questions. So I think we are good. Patience, I think let me just help you to lower your hand. I think you've raised your issue there. So maybe just a matter of lowering your hand. So maybe now let's talk about the loops. Let's talk about this. What we call a while loop. So normally loops can execute a block of code as long as a specified condition is true. So loops are handy because they save time, reduce errors, and they make code more readable. So if there's a code that you want to keep on repeating or being executed and executed again, instead of writing a lot of lines of it, you can just write maybe that line of code and then keep on iterating it or keep on repeating it. So the while loop repeats a block of code as long as a specified condition is true. So this is the syntax. While your condition here is true, keep on executing what's in the block. Otherwise, if the condition is false, then go out of the block. So it's as good as the if else part, the if part. But what is happening now is that if it is true, we keep on iterating what is in this block and only go out of that block when that condition is false. And that's when this animal here, the I, normally comes in. You can use anything, I, J, K, whatever, but normally when it comes to loops, you always see I, J, K. Don't be fooled that it's a must to use those things, but it's something which is convenient. And it's something that you always see in most of the textbooks, something that you always see people doing. So I think it's always good to follow suit. So basically, let me just take this, maybe to just save time. Let me take everything here out except the return and the out of switch statement. I want to just say out of while loop. Guys, take note that maybe I left something. I think I left a block to close it. Okay, so this one is out of while loop. So this only gets executed whenever we are out of this loop. Okay, so what happens is here is that we first check this condition. Is I less than 5? And you know that I is 0. So is it 0 less than 5? Yes. So what do? We print the value of I and we skip a line. And the next thing is to increment I by 1. So our I will be 1. Is it 1 less than 5? Yes. So we print the value of I, which is 1, and then increment it to 2. Then we go to the condition, we check if it is true, do what is in it, increment, check the condition. If it is true, do what is the, if it is false, then now jump up to here, just like that. So that's why we've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We do not have a 5. Why? Because here you print 4 and then you increment to 5. Is it 5 less than 5? No, so it doesn't run anything here, just jumps to this part out of where statement. So guys, when you're working with a while loop, I think it's a little bit trickier. Avoid to make an infinite loop. An infinite loop is that loop that doesn't end. If I take this I plus plus, someone to tell me what happens here. Someone tell me what happens here. If I take out that I plus plus, or just commenting it out. If I just comment it out like this, what happens?
It will continuously execute the code to continuously print I.
Why?
Forever. Because the condition
Why?
is always going to be met. So the loop is always going to be active. There's no there's no break or stopping point where the condition is not being met, because it's always going to be I is always going to be less than 5.
Yes, and what could be, and what is going to be that value of I?
Value of I is always going to be 0.
Exactly, that's what is going to happen. So you're going to check is 0 less than 5? Yes, then you print 0 here. What's the next thing? Because this one I commented out, the compiler will discard it. It goes back here, 0 less than 5, yes, print 0. 0 less than 5, yes, print 0, something like that. So I'm afraid to do this because I might go to my PC stuck here in the loop. So it will be always in the loop. But that's what will be happening. You'll be printing 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, something like that. So avoid to do that. Avoid to do that. Make sure that whenever you are putting a while loop, no one will tell you to do that. It's you who design it. So make sure that you always make sure that it will end up being something that will be false here. Otherwise, that's what you do. So if you are asked to print maybe the first 10 even numbers, what do you do using while loop? The first 10 even numbers. Do you even know how to see if a number is even or not? How do you see if a number is even or not? That's where you start. Loops forever, no updating the value. Thanks for that of I. Ngomo, you want to say something?
Yes, if I want to check its even number, you have to give me a remainder 0.
Okay.
Whenever I divide with 2, it's supposed to give me the remainder 0. Then I can easily tell this is an even number.
Okay, so I want to get the even number from between 0 and 10. So what I would do is here, what do I do here? What number should I have to put here? I is less than 5. What should I have to put? We know I is 0. So I want to take even numbers between 0 and 10. What should I have to put here?
I'm sure you have to put 2. Is it 2 equals to 0? I don't know.
I should have to put. I mean on the condition.
Condition should be I modulus 2 is equal to 0.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I want to get the even numbers between 0 and 10. What's the condition should have to put here for while here to run from a certain number to that number so that I could factor out to only take the even numbers? So that one, it's now the implementation logic inside here. I'm not yet there. I'm still here. So that's how we go step by step.
So it could be I is less than 10 for as long as I know actually no.
You're almost there. Though
I think it should be I should be equals to less than or equal to 10.
yes, less than or equal to 10 or just less than 11, because I was just asking for. So it will be less than or equal to 10 or I less than 11. By saying I less than 11, it means when you reach to 10, when you want to go to the next, it won't, because it will be 11 less than 11, then boom, it will be false. So you could put less than or equal to 10, or you could put just less than 11 there. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is I want to print only those numbers which are even. So what should I have to do here? I think I need to take this one out. So what should I have to do to print those numbers which are even?
You have to say printf specifier I is I equals to 2. I don't know.
Like here, I have to say?
I
have to say if
printf percentage specifier I equals
okay, you are breaking, but in short, maybe there's something that you are missing there. I don't know the other, but okay, it's in Ngomo. Okay, so you are breaking, but the issue is you could not. You could. Yeah, you might be right, but the issue is you could not put an if statement inside the printf, which means the if should be outside and then the printf should be inside. That's the correct logic.
I think we can put an if statement inside,
yes,
and then we put a parameter where you say I modulus 2 equal 0.
Not equal, but equal. So here I would say if I modulus is percentage there.
2.
Yes.
Is equal naida kuti I compare to 0, so that if there's no remainder, then we print kuti this one is, so it matches the condition.
So in other words, you are saying if I modulus 2 is equal to 0, not equal. This one is an assignment operator. If it is 1, then if there are 2, it's now an equal sign. So you're just, yes, so you're just saying if I modulus 2 is equal to 0. In other words, if you divide I by 2 and get a remainder 0, it means that number is an even number. And we want to print that value of I. And let's try this and see what we are going to get. And we are going to get 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And we've managed to succeed to get that. Boom. Then it means that now we have got programmers, right? Because I gave you a problem and you managed to solve it and you gave me this. So that's it, and that's it. So this is what you do. If you want to see if you want odd numbers, just put a 1 there, because if you divide a number in by 2 and give you a remainder 1, it means that number is odd. So that's what you do. Boom, 13579. So that's it. Very basic and very simple and very easy. So I think it's something that you need to look at. And be able to do something like that. I don't know if the hands were for the contributions or are the questions. Sandy Lemoyo, Dabson, I don't know. But if you really want to say something, you can unmute yourself.
I want to ask a question.
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to ask if 0 is actually an even number, because I feel like we made a mistake on the condition to include say 0.
We didn't make a mistake there. As someone doing mathematical foundation, you need to know that 0 is an even number.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's all.
Yes, when you are doing sets, I think if you are doing set build annotation sets, if you are doing sets, you are given something related to these numbers, I think you might fail because of that. Yes, 0 is an even number. That's the short answer. I just wanted to illustrate that for everyone, that it's good to know those things. Prime numbers, what, blah, blah, blah. It's good to know that. We talk about them later when we are doing that much. We do not want to dive into that, but thank you for the question. I don't know if there are other questions. Okay, people were replying to the, okay. I think the one who gave the correct thing there, I think you have seen what you were supposed to do. Anyway, that's it for the while loop. So maybe this the do while loop. Do while loop, it's as good as the while loop, only that you are guaranteed that is going to run for one iteration before checks the condition. So it does something, then checks the condition. So it's do this while the condition is true, something like that. So you do something, then you check the condition later. That's the do while. So it's just the same as the while loop, only that you first do something and then you check the condition. So you are only guaranteed that something you are going to execute for one iteration. You are only guaranteed that. And then after that, it depends on the condition. So you're going to have loop is a variant of the while loop. This loop will execute the code block once before checking if the condition is true, and then it will repeat the loop as long as the condition is true, just like that. So you do this, the code, this, blah, where the condition is true. When the condition is false, then you exit, something like this. So you do this while I is less than 5. After then you no longer iterate this. So you do whenever the condition is confident or the condition is true, just like that. So you are guaranteed that it is going to execute only once. I think it's very, very simple. But what happens with the people? People always make things tough for themselves. You remove this and put a do there and put the condition at the end there. And normally you need to terminate this. Am I correct? Oh, yes, I'm correct. You need to terminate this. That's where only you terminate there. So what happens there is you are guaranteed that there is one thing that is going to run it there. And then after that, it depends on this one, right? So what if here I put, I'm going to start at I is 0. If I put minus 20 there, if I is less than minus 20, 0 is not less than minus 20. So what happens is, I think I will just get, okay, because why did I get nothing there? Okay, because 0 is not an odd number. Okay, let me put this one. So it means, it makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to get a 0, and after that, I'll get nothing. It goes out of the do while loop. So what happens is, we are guaranteed that it is going to execute once, and after that, it shows that it sees that 0 is not less than minus 20, so it's not going to loop. So, excuse me, that's the while loop there. So you can use it to do a lot of things. Maybe like here, if let me say maybe if I is equal to maybe 3. So here you want to do something. What could I give here as an example? Okay. Let me say instead of I++, let me remove this. Okay. Maybe you were doing what you were doing, do blah, 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 what you were doing, and maybe you want to ask a person something like printf, yeah, something like printf. Sorry, I need to say and 3, 2, continue, and any number to exit, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scanf. I'm going to use scanf, and I'm going to say %d, and I'm going to store that. I put the address. I'm going to store the value in I. So what I'm going to do is, for you to continue, enter 3. So I'm going to keep on running this whenever I is equal to 3. if you enter in a number, I'm going to exit. So here you'll be putting your code there. After that, you say, do you still want to do this or whatever? Maybe it's a calculator that you've done there. Maybe the person still wants to calculate some things, whatever, something like that. So what I'll do is, if I run this, it will say enter 3 to blah, blah, or any number to exit. So if I do this, I put it to, so it is going to exit. Maybe I was supposed to put a /n here for it to be a little bit prettier, something like that. Let me run this. What am I going to enter 3 to continue? So if I put 3, it will say again enter 3 to continue, and then 3. So it's like it will run everything there. Then it will ask you if you still want to continue to exit. If I put 5, then it goes out of the do while loop, just like that. I think you've seen one use case of a do while loop, something like that. So that's the do while loop there. I don't know if I've got a question. So maybe the next thing that we need to do is to start on a for loop. We need to look at the for loop, and maybe we'll do arrays, we'll do for user input, we've already done that. We do pointers, we need to do functions, and maybe structures. Yeah, those are very, very important. And then maybe lastly, files, if I really, really want to look at it. Otherwise, something which is very, very simple that you could look at. For today, I think I can call it a day, unless if I've got questions. People always do want to ask, and it's very, very good to ask because you still have the time to ask. Yes, Ngoma, want to say something?
Yes, I'm sure for this recording we can get it right.
Yeah, for the recording, I'm sure you can get it. I think I will upload it on YouTube, maybe, but maybe not today, but tomorrow morning, because I think I need it to. It's now almost 9 o'clock.
Yeah, we joined late, but I think we can follow. Thank you so much.
Okay, welcome. Any other question?
Yes, I do hope you are going to send us the link on this group, right?
Yeah, I will do so, as always.
For this YouTube recording. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. And also, if you have already subscribed, you just get the notification when it's up there. But what I know is by tomorrow, it will be up there, so that those who are not in here would have a chance to access it and see what we are doing, because it's very, very important. Otherwise, if there are no more questions, because I'm not seeing any hand. Yes,
Sorry,
Ngoma?
sir.
Yes.
Yeah, I think next time, I don't know, maybe we missed the message that you are having a lesson. I don't know, when are we going to have another one?
I think if you are in the group, I've shared it days before. I always do that. The problem with my Vista is that if you want to send a message to everyone, it takes time. It takes time sending that message. So I find it that it's better to just post it in our WhatsApp group. So I've done that, unless if you're not in the group.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think I'm not in the group. Thank you so much. I think
You need to join our WhatsApp group. If you go on your portal, there's a link for WhatsApp group. You need to join our WhatsApp group. And I don't know how you find yourself here, or how you end up being here if you're not in the WhatsApp group. I think someone told you. So you need to join the WhatsApp group, because that's where you are doing all the communications.
Yeah, sure. A friend just to ask me, WhatsApp, what are you doing? No, I'm trying to do mathematics. I know we are in the middle of a lecture, so I
Yeah.
just
So
joined.
okay. So I think you need to join all our WhatsApp groups. Check on the portal. There's a link there that says, please join this WhatsApp group for quick communication, blah blah blah. You click that link, you join our WhatsApp group.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I think if we do not have any question, we can call it a day. Yes, no, you want to say something? Want to say something?
Yeah, I want to say something. Right. So
Yes.
when are we having another tutorial, online tutorial?
for this module?
Yeah, for the other concepts that are not covered today.